CEA Subramanian has been central to the government's effort to mitigate the pandemic's economic blow. Amid the opposition's criticism of the centre's fiscal caution in providing relief stimulus, he has been defended the government's credit guarantee loans over unconditional cash transfer. Krishnamurthy Subramanian says impact of second wave on economy won't be as large as the first wave. Asserts India will see the impact of recent phenomenal reforms from FY23 and explains why he is against the unconditional cash transfers like disastrous from loan waiver. The session was moderated by special correspondent Anchal Magazine. The economic fortunes over the last 1 year or so have been linked to the pandemic itself. Last month, the GDP numbers for the full year came out. While there was a lower decline of 7.3% compared to 8% as projected, it is still negative. What's important is that if you look at the composition of the GDP, it would take a note of gross fixed capital formation (GFCF) in the fourth quarter at 34.3% of GDP. It was 26-quarter high in the birth at high 6.5 years. What was the impact of this on the aspects of the economy? The construction sectors grew by close to 15%. There were other spillover effects like consumption after reducing 3 consecutive quarters grew by 2.7% in the third quarter. Even travel and tourism and some other contact-sensitive sectors, though these had declined at high double digits in the previous 3 quarters, registered a degrowth of only 2.3%. This is the evidence of the philosophy that has driven the government's plan for economic recovery, which is the cycle starting from private investments and thereby leading to consumption in the first round and then consumption feeding onto investments. So that's the good news. If you look at the overall macro itself, where you plot GDP growth or the high frequency indicates like e-way bills, power demand or GST, you clearly see the V-shaped recovery that I had talked about after the first quarter. The recovery was very well, and the momentum of the recovery has been impacted by the second wave. Undoubtedly, but there are some very important differences. First thing we have to recognize is the last March, when the first wave hit. We were in a situation of unknown and unknowns. Everyone was learning, finding out. In contrast, the second wave was a situation of known unknowns. We knew we had to reduce some of the economic activities without really shutting everything down. The second key aspect of the second wave is that the decline has been as sharp as the rise itself. The duration of the wave was shorter. Also, because the policy was this time was implemented by the states. They were heterogeneous and asynchronous as well. As a result, on April 30% of GDP by geography was impacted, but even there, essential and interstate trade was not impacted. Similarly, in the month of May, close to 60% of the GDP geographically was impacted, but again, essentials and interstate activities were not impacted. So given the lower duration and the lack of synchronicity, what happened is around the last week of May, a lot of high-shaped indicators starting their V-shaped recovery. In the economic monthly report that we will bring out for June, you will see an illustration of that. So overall, the impact of the second wave is not large. From a health perspective, the second wave was quite devastating, but the economic impact will not be as large. So India will still grow at a high rate, and as have discussed before, starting from FY 2023 onwards. Rating agencies and other international agencies are starting to project this. India will start seeing the full impact of the phenomenal reforms that have been undertaken in the last 1.5 years.